So we are reading Aghora, the left hand of God. We are on chapter 3, Shiva, page number 96 of the book and page number 51 of the PDF.
The rituals of death in their simplest forms have been propounded because there is some value in doing them. But you need to know what you are doing. Do you have any idea why we Hindus always lay the corpse out on the ground with the head to the north? You know that the magnetic lines of force of the earth run north and south. There are three important benefits in this practice. First, rigor mortis sets in quickly and decomposition is hastened. Second, the magnetic field reacts with the body in such a way that the spirit cannot re enter the body even if it tries. Third, in this position, it is easier to perform kilana on the spirit and do Pitri Tarpan immediately, which will help the spirit find its way to a new womb much faster and easier. After death, the spirit is confused, uncertain of what to do. It is up to you as a loved one to do your utmost to give some direction to the after death experiences to minimize the feelings of loneliness and terror of the unknown.
So, so this is very clear, right? I was mentioning it that we put the head of the corpse on the northern side. Unfortunately, what has started happening with these karm kandis, they're now starting to put it on the south side. Now, when we sleep, according to the magnetic fields, if our heads are on the south, we get better sleep, right? So again, there are fields of magnetic fields which are affecting what we should do and when we should do it. Okay. And the other two, the rigor mortis sets in quickly for decomposition. I know that what I have seen this happening, that when a person is more spiritually involved, right, the body remains supple for a very much longer time than when one is less evolved. In our culture, we actually have to shift the hands behind the. I don't know why they do it, but we do it. We put the hands behind the back of the person when the person is going to be cremated. Now, there may be a reason over here. He says that it is more difficult for another spirit to come into the body if these protections are actually made. So you actually tie it. It had come over here also. You tie the two thumbs together. You put the hands behind the person, and again over here he mentions Kilana is the breaking of the skull. So the highest form of exit from the body is from the skull. The skull actually bursts in certain cases.
Pitri Tarpan is one of the after death rituals which is really useful if you perform it correctly. It is a process by which you invite your dead ancestors and attempt to satisfy their lingering desires which prevent them from making their way higher in the hierarchy of existence. Did you know that this can actually alter your genes and chromosomes for the better? Suppose one of your ancestors was a debauchee, very fond of sex. When he dies, his lust will not disappear. He will carry it along with him. He will long for sex, but since his body no longer exists, he will have no way in which to satisfy his desire.
So again, we spoke about this yesterday also, that if a person transcends and is attached to something, so it may be a desire, it may be a thing. A desire is hooking, again, three things, right? Time, place, person, or object, right? Now he has a desire for something or for someone, then that spirit will get attached. Now if that spirit is attached, they cannot transcend, they don't have the energy. So it is like helping the person get escape velocity so that they can transcend from that existence in which they are stuck. That is the reason why we do the Pitri Tarpan or even the Shraddh. That is the reason why we do it. Now, if someone has already transcended or has gone into the higher hierarchy or the higher realm, then we do not need to do it anymore. But having said that, because we have no way of actually identifying who has gone and who has not gone, it's better to do it because you really don't lose anything by doing it.
However, his genes and chromosomes still exist. They have been passed down to his children and grandchildren and so on. There is no real difference between seed and tree, is there? One is an unmanifested form and one is fully manifested. So this old geezer's lust will be felt by his descendants. So long as they have some of his genetic material in them, they will vibrate at his wavelength, at least to some extent. You have millions of genes. Not all of them work at once. How does the body decide which ones work? This is one way.
So again, I forgot to mention it in the last paragraph also. So the genes and chromosomes, they follow or they actually, they're an imprint, they're a blueprint. But it doesn't mean any of those genes and chromosomes will get activated in anyone absolutely. So there are the epigenetic factor now starts coming in here. Epigenetics is what your environmental effect on the person concerned. So which gene will get triggered is very dependent on epigenetics. This was, I think, coined by Bruce Lipton, the epigenetical factor. And the genes are carried on, right? Why is it carried on? Because today you are created by your parents' DNA. So there is automatically a wavelength, there is a synchronization in the frequency. There is a wave pattern, and you resonate like your parents. So that is why you will find that many of the children, they start actually behaving like their parents. They start looking like their parents also. So, what is happening here? If you have a certain desire or a certain capability or a certain amplitude, that is again passed on by the genes. This is seen in the animal kingdom also. If the weather pattern changes, then the fur of an animal over a few generations can get converted from black to brown, depending on the epigenetical factor, and that is how the genes get transferred. This is also something which is looked into in the family constellation thing. When Devanshi did the family constellation talk, she says that the genes or the issue can be passed on by generations. So the problem that you are having today may have been started in your great grandfather's time, and it has been passing on through the genome to work on you right now also, although he was 7 or 8 generations above you.
Now, if Pitri Tarpan is performed and this ancestor is made to take birth in a new womb, probably an animal womb, since he is so overcome with the animalistic desire to copulate, he will have a nice new body with which to enjoy sex. He will self identify with his new genes and chromosomes and will forget his old ones. Then you will be free of his influence on your own genes and chromosomes because he won't be there broadcasting lust for you to resonate with. This will make your mind firmer, less sexy.
Okay, so this is not something that I know or resonate with too much, but yeah, resonance is always a factor, and we are influenced by our ancestors, whether we like it or not.
But Niket,
Yeah.
I've heard somewhere that once you come into the human body, you usually don't take the animal
Yeah,
body.
so normally
So,
you don't go. That's why I said I don't fully resonate with this
okay.
paragraph,
ठीक है, fair enough.
because
Yeah.
I feel that, yeah, once you've achieved a certain intelligence, then you generally
Right.
don't come down. Okay. But having said that, there is various varnans in our shastras also. There's that story about that sage. He was having a bath and a doe came into his hand, and then he got so involved with the doe that he forgot his
Yeah, that
austerity.
जड़
Yeah, I
भरत
don't
की
remember the
कहानी जो
name.
आती है.
तो जड़ भरत जी
Hmm.
होंगे. So now the
हाँ.
point is that, yeah, it could happen, right? So you could go
Yeah,
into a
makes
lower
sense.
state of consciousness. It's not that you couldn't, but generally it is said that if you have evolved to a certain extent, then you're not
Hmm.
going to devolve again. That is what is
Yeah.
normally said.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Your ancestor will bless you for giving him a means through which to fulfill his desires. Besides, you owe a debt to all your ancestors for having provided your physical body to you. And this is one way to pay off that debt and eliminate the karmic bond. Isn't this wonderful? Everyone is happy.
So how are you doing this? By doing Pitri Tarpan, by giving your ancestor the energy to manifest in the way that they would like to manifest. So that way they are cutting off from the association with you. So the resonance on you also starts to get eliminated.
This is one of the many reasons I hate communism. Communists are taught to forget their parents, to denounce them if they work against the state. If you destroy your parents, who are your roots? How do you ever expect to prosper? On the contrary, you'll degenerate, become more primitive and barbaric. I hate communism.
So again, if you're not clear with your parents, and this is coming again and again in all practices, I've mentioned this before, your parents are, you are here because of your parents. So whether you like it or not, there's a great debt that you owe to your parents for your basic existence. Apart from that, you are constantly resonating with your parents because your parents DNA is in you, right? So if you are not clear with your parents, the resonance, the vibrations in your field are definitely compromised. So it says here, if you are destroying your parents, who are your roots? How do you expect to prosper? So if you're not complete with your parents, it becomes very difficult to really start achieving anything or doing anything with your life, because at the end you will face the brunt of not being complete with your parents.
Your ancestors are one of the reasons it is troublesome to be reborn. Every time you are reborn, you have to cope with the idiosyncrasies and whims of all your dead forebears. And by the time you are finished overcoming all those limitations, your life is over. That is why, once you reach a certain stage in your sadhana, you begin to crave for freedom from the obligation of being reborn. And let me tell you, salvation, moksha, freedom from rebirth, or whatever you want to call it, is Shiva's grace, nothing else. Lord Shiva tells his Shakti, all these fools you have created to play with should be put to sleep, make them unaware of the truth, and let them grope about. Only a few will I allow to reach for me and come to me, and then merge into me when they are perfectly aware.
Okay, so again, Robert Monroe always says that what are we doing over here? We want to get out of our box. We all have boxes around us, right? So until we get escape velocity to actually transcend our boxes, overcome our belief systems, we are stuck in this world. We will keep coming back because our desires is what will bring us back. Okay, in the Gita also you talk about the sanchit vasanas and the prarabdha vasanas, right? So the prarabdha vasanas, according to the Gita, are what is being played out in this life, and the sanchit vasanas are the cumulative vasanas that you have, the desires that you have, or what is it that you really want to experience. Now you are constantly wanting to eliminate that. So if I convert it into Robert Monroe's words, the box is what your vasanas is all about. We are creating that box with our vasanas. Now the moment we get rid of all our vasanas, all our desires, that is when we will get escape velocity. So again, in the Gita also, you're constantly talking about detachment, get rid of desires. Ashtavarkar Gita we are doing in the morning, he talks about that only. That how do you transcend desires? Why am I attached? I need to get over my attachment. So the more attached you are, the more stuck you are. The less attached you are, the less stuck you are. So ultimately, what are we all looking for? We are looking to merge with the Godhead, which is called moksha. Okay, this is what he's saying over here.
This is why everyone who goes to the cemetery cries. In fact, the smashan is also known as Rudra Bhumi, the place where tears flow. Ordinary people cry because they are deluded by Maya and are self identifying with the relative or friend who has just died. Saints and immortal beings cry tears of joy because it is in the smashan that they see their true personalities, their true selves, because what is Lord Shiva but pure consciousness?
So ordinary people cry because they're deluded by Maya and are self identifying by a relative or a friend. So, yes, you have a connection with a relative or a friend, but it is actually Maya, because what we are experiencing in this 3D reality actually does not exist. But we are making an emotional bond or an emotional connection with that personality who has left the body. So, we feel sad that that person will no longer be in our midst, right? But ultimately, what is happening? It is not true. Now, saints, when they get rid of the facade, when they drop the facade, that is when they feel happy. And if they go to the Shamshan, then in the Shamshan, what is. There is nothing else, right? Once you're dead, you're dead. So the saints are actually welcoming that process of dying so that they can actually visualize who they are. Because in death, the facade drops, everyone goes on to the same funeral prayer. Okay, you may be a multi-billionaire, you may be a Kangal, it really doesn't matter. Everyone reaches the same spot.
What state is Shiva in? Samadhi Nishto, permanent Samadhi, eternal oneness with the universe. Shiva Samadhi is different from ordinary states of Samadhi because Shiva is aware of everything at all times. In ordinary Samadhi, you may lose your awareness of external reality. Shiva, though, is perfect awareness.
So Shiva is the ultimate, where everything is manifesting through Shiva, the ultimate Godhead he's talking about here. I would say that Shiva would represent the ultimate Godhead here. So everything is in Shiva. So Shiva is aware of everything else. Whereas when we go into Samadhi, we are disconnecting from a small fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, let's put it that way. But when Shiva knows everything and everything has come out of him, then he is aware of everything, even if he is in Samadhi.
Shiva is almost never touched by Maya. He is the creator of Maya and allows her to play about as she wishes. He can never die because all other gods are celestial beings in the universe are subject to his jurisdiction. If he were to die, how could he take them when their time came to cease to exist? The god of death is the only being in the universe with the authority to take life. Without that authority, even, he could not do it. An ordinary policeman can arrest a governor or a prime minister on the strength of his badge. Without his badge, he is powerless. Shiva has the right to kill.
So Shiva is the creator of Maya. So naturally, he is beyond Maya, right? So if he is beyond Maya, then Maya can never touch him. And naturally, so we have a hierarchy also, right? We have an Indra Devta. So there are various levels of consciousness. Robert Monroe talked about it in his book Ultimate Journeys. And even in the Hindu Shastra, it's there, the Loks. Okay. So you have one Indra, you have one Vishnu, you have one Brahma in one level of consciousness. Then in the next level of consciousness, again, you have all of them. Then in the next level, again, you have all of them. And on top of all of these is that Brahman. And this is what he's talking about here, that Shiva is beyond all that.
Since Shiva cannot die, he was never born, because everything which was born must die. Death treats all beings alike. This is why Shiva is called Swayambhu or self existent, not subject to birth and death. You may have seen the icon of Shiva as Nataraj, Lord of Dance, where he is surrounded by the flames of disillusion as his dance creates, preserves, and destroys innumerable universes simultaneously, according to the rhythm of his two headed drum. Shiva is the source of that sound. He is pure rhythm.
So again, creation is created by sound, by the damru, right? Vibration. So Shiva is the creator. And if he is the creator, he is never born. So creation comes out of him. So if creation comes out of him, then how can he die? Because if he dies, then everything else dies together with him.
You see, Shiva is absolute. Any form you worship is only a form, and your worship is worship of the absoluteness behind it. For example, take the Shivling, the most commonly worshipped image in India for thousands of years. What is it really? It is absolute firmness, stability. What is firmer than a rock? You may beat on it, shake it, or do whatever you please to it, but it will never budge. The,
So,
Shiv-
yeah, go ahead.
the Shivling is Shiva's penis, and the base in which it is mounted is his wife Parvati's vagina. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Bhaga mukhe linga agni mukhe parda, which means no matter how well you discipline the penis or solidify mercury alchemically, the penis will always ejaculate when placed into the vagina, and mercury will always melt when put into fire. But this is not true of Shiva. He has completely burned lust from his consciousness. His penis forever resides in Parvati's vagina, and yet he never loses control. This is why the tantric alchemists worship Shiva, because Mercury is Shiva's semen, and only through his grace can they achieve the ability to solidify it so that it will not melt even when cast into fire.
So this is the natural propensity of a male, right? But having said that, even in tantric practices, when you are going into tantric practices, one of the practices is that you indulge in the practice of copulation, but you do not ejaculate, neither the lady nor the man. And the more you can take it, the more you can take it, results in the ojas, which is represented by the energy field which is there when you have a ejaculation. It actually gets transformed and goes up the spine, which is how the kundalini gets its energy to start rising. So Shiva is the only one who can be in constant copulation but still not have an organism or ejaculate.
Mount Kailash in the Himalayas is said to be Shiva's abode. Why? Because it is intensely cold. Where there is no heat there in where there is no heat, there is no mental turmoil. Heat is turmoil which arises from desire. Lord Shiva has gone beyond all desire, but that is not so easy.
So yeah, so when there's heat, there is lust, there is desire. If you're cold, you'll find when you're cold, you don't want to, indulge so much.
Life is only a memory. It may be a sweet memory or a bitter memory, but it is only a memory. As long as you remember that you are such and such a person and such an address, and you have relatives and friends and whatnot, you can stay alive. When you forget, when your karmic debts have been paid and your warehouse of karmas is empty, you can no longer self identify with anything. Without memory, there is no life. In Sanskrit, the word for memory and the word for the god of lust is the same, smara. Desire is the cause of karma, and when desire is destroyed, memory too will go, and you will be free. This is why Lord Shiva is called Smarahara, meaning destroyer of lust, as well as destroyer of memory. Smar in grammar means past. Memory is only of the past.
So we are what we are because of our memory of what we are. You take away the memory, then what are you? So someone who has lost his mind, who has lost his memories, who is he? You can't even identify him. You can't do anything with him. He has totally lost any connection with who he is, right? So we are our own creators of our identity with our memories.
Smarahar is he who transforms you from present tense to past tense, he who kills you. Smarshan is the place where you go from present to past, where you are transformed from existence into a memory. What happens at death? During life, the body is sustained by the ego, which self identifies with the body, the relatives, the personality, and so on. Your ego is nothing but your Kundalini Shakti, your own personal fragment of Adya. All during life, your ego tries to find her mate, her controller, Lord Shiva. And because we have forgotten the truth, we find evidence of Shiva in other people and convince ourselves that we have located what we have been searching for.
So again, we identify ourselves with our memories. Memories are also connected with ego, and ego is what makes us what we are. So if you do not have any ego, then you cannot survive in the material world anymore, because you will self identify with everything around you. So a little bit of ego to be able to live in this world is very, very important. But we are in constant search of the absolute, of becoming complete, to transcend the ego. And for that, we are constantly looking for the other half of ourselves. That's why men are looking for women and women are looking for men under general circumstances.
When Mahakal comes to a person, he calls to the Shakti to come and unite with him. This is why Mahakal has no form. He has every form. Every created being is only half and spends its entire life trying to reunite with its missing half to return to the state of unity. Mahakal is like a master key which temporarily provides that perfect missing half, long enough for the individual to forget his or her previous existence and start on the road to a new existence.
So when you unite with that Godhead, you naturally forget that you're looking for anything, because that Godhead can become anything. So it becomes the half that you're looking for. And because of that, you can again go into the next journey. So you can go into the next level of existence or the next level of consciousness.
When Mahakal comes to a person and the ego Shakti sees him face to face, she suddenly realizes, oh no, I am not the body, I am not this limited personality, I am the grand consort of my Lord, the unlimited eternal personality. Because of overwhelming love, the Shakti leaves the body to unite with her Lord and forgets who she had been self identifying with. As soon as the ego forgets to self identify with the body, the individual dies.
So if I don't have any ego, the individual cannot survive. The individual will disappear.
Some yogis and some other higher beings exist in the Sadashiv form. Their individual ego, Shaktis, are merged together with Shiva at all times, but they are not fully united since, if they were, individual existence would have to be terminated. This is very rare, no doubt, but when it happens, you can go beyond death.
So again, some people are constantly in that altered state of consciousness, where they are connected with that higher divinity, right? But the connection is not 100%, because if it is 100%, then you cannot survive. In the excursion workshop, we show a graph of what is your state of consciousness, or how much of your mind is connected with your physical body at which state. So you have a state of daydreaming. Now let us say a child is daydreaming in a class. Now is the child in the class, or he is somewhere else? So a part of him is in the class and a part of him is somewhere else. As we go deeper into meditation, we identify less with our body and more with something else. So let's say when you are asleep, is there any thought of your body when you are asleep? So the disconnection is even more. If you are in coma, you really don't know you exist here and you don't know you are there. When we die, we disconnect from the physical body and we are totally there. So what happens over here? If that small amount of ego is not there, we cannot live in this body.
Mahakal is a Rudra. He makes everyone cry. Do you know that he also cries out of joy whenever he takes anyone? He thinks, by my magnanimity, I have removed this individual from all the pains and miseries of existence. And the fellow was not even aware of my presence. Now he is truly at peace. People are fools to cry for their dead. They should cry for themselves.
So this is very important line, okay? People are fools to cry for their death, for the dead. They should cry for themselves. Now, today, just imagine, this is a very stark thing I'm saying here, that today, when a person passes on and we are crying, okay, someone is crying. Now, you ask that person, why are you crying? They will say, I'm crying for that person who has passed away. But that person who has passed away has already passed away. So why are you crying? You're not crying for the person who has passed away. You're crying for yourself. Okay. This is extremely important to understand that why are you crying? Now I'll tell you a story what happened with me. My grandmother was in the hospital. Okay, we had just taken her. She was there only for a day. And I went to meditate at Tapadi House in Shivangla's parents' place, which is near the hospital. And when I was in my meditation, I saw her, going out of the hospital. So when I came back, I'm telling everyone, yeah, she's okay, she's okay. And it was the exact time when I had seen her go out of the hospital that she had flatlined. She had gone away. Okay. So now my father told me that you go to the house and make arrangements in the house. I will settle things here and we will bring her to the house. Now, while I was driving back, I was crying. And let me tell you, someone came and stood in front of me and is saying, why are you crying? Who are you crying for? So my response was exactly the same thing, that I'm crying for her. He said, why are you crying? She doesn't need, she's happy where she's gone. You've seen her go. So then I realized that I was not crying for her and I was crying for myself. And then after that, we made sure that no one cried. If anyone came to visit us during that period, immediately they were given a book to write Ram Ram over there, have good thoughts, and then move out of the place. So, this is also one of the reasons why, if you are crying for that departed soul, then that soul is connected with you. Over here, we saw previously that when a mother passes on, or the ancestor passes on, they are still concerned about their offspring. We read it a few pages back, right? So now if you are crying, they get concerned about you and then they get stuck further. So if you allow them to release themselves, if you allow them to go on their path in a peaceful manner, it is a much better thing than to cry. Okay, I know that you feel that emotional thing, some tears will be there, but awareness of this fact becomes very, very important.
Lord Shiva is Bholenath, the Lord of compassion. He has not one atom of cruelty in his person. He is the kindest being there is because he relieves you of all your earthly agonies. Can anyone ever think of asking for more than that?
So ultimately, Bholenath is Bhola. There are so many stories about Shivji giving boons to people, not even thinking about what boon he is given. He was the one who drank the poison when the Amrit in the that churning which was there. No one else could have done it, right? So he is the ultimate epitome of compassion. But then he also has to do what he has to do, right? So he just wants to relieve you of your pain, and he may feel harsh at that time, like a child feels very that the parent is very strict. But why is the parent doing it? Because the parent really loves and cares for the child. That is why the parent is disciplining the child. So Shivji does the same thing.
Everyone is afraid of dying, which explains why no one is willing to love Mahakal. Only two persons in all our scriptures have loved Mahakal, and both of them became immortal, Markandeya and Nachiketa. Destruction is necessary, but unfortunately, no one is willing to face death. Even for Ram and Krishna, who were real incarnations of God, there was one moment of shock, one tremor, when Mahakal appeared before them. Some slight Maya was there, a momentary remembrance of their children or whoever. So you see, the sight of Mahakal is so terrible that even God incarnate quails before him. Even Jesus had a moment on the cross when his faith almost failed him.
So again, what is happening? To have to exist in this world, a certain amount of ego, an ego will represent attachment, has to be there. So when you have to leave that attachment, there always will be a slight amount of shock. But the more detached you can become, the more you let go, the more you don't hang on to stuff, the more you can take a sakshi bhav towards everything, the more easy it will be for you to transit.
Of course, the sight of Mahakal is not terrible. It is wonderful. But the ego sees him as terrible because he has come to rip her away from all her attachments, and some attachments go very deep. When she is free, she realizes who she is and who Mahakal is. To remain alert at the moment of death is the achievement of a lifetime.
So again, I shared Joe McMonaghan's story with you, where he wanted to experience dying. I think this episode that the person wanted to experience dying, I think it came also in Autobiography of a Yogi, where this guy, he wanted to really experience that. Now, when you can become aware while you're dying, that is the kind of the best death that you can have, because you're aware, you're alert, and you can actually process what is happening.
People think death is to be feared. It just isn't so. Birth is to be feared because when you are born, you forget all about what you did in your past lives and you go out and ruin yourself. But death is release from your physical shackles.
So before we are born, our consciousness is like that. Okay. Now, when we are born, we have to forget. Now, today, if I know something, I cannot experience it. It becomes, you'll find there's a propensity curve. The more you experience something, the less that experience becomes anything for you, right? You lose the kick in the experience. So, before we are born, our consciousness is like this. Now, to be able to experience stuff, our consciousness shrinks and it becomes here, right? So we can't remember stuff that we knew over here. Now, once we die, again the consciousness goes back into that original state. So we remember everything. So naturally over here, when we are when we are born, we are actually cutting off from what the information we had. But again, when we are looking at it from the Monroe perspective, and all the people that who have been going into these altered states, they all say that, and there are so many books about people who've had NDEs, they've gone into that altered afterlife state, and they've been actually told to come back here many times. Many times they are told that okay, someone is annotating. Please don't annotate. Okay, and so just one second. Let me get rid of this. I don't know what's up. Anyway, okay, so so what happens? What was I saying? Yeah, so we reduce our level, right? And then when we go back, we remember that. So what has been said is that when we are there, we are actually, this is like a fast track. It is a place where we actually learn more than what we could learn over there. What we learn here, let us say we do it in one day. Over there, it will take you few hundred years to learn the same thing. So that's why the experiential experience of being here is also very, very important. But he says over here, people think death is to be feared, but birth is what is to be feared. Why? Because we are becoming less than what we were. So there's a fear involved. There's an unknown factor which is there. Why? Which creates a problem in the sense of our being able to really know what we know. So what are we trying to do in awareness? We are constantly trying to expand this, where that thin thing which is there, we want to expand it. So our awareness gets expanded and we realize what is happening to us.
When Shiva comes to take someone, he is very gentle, especially to innocent and harmless people. And children, how he hates to take children. He'll do almost anything for a child just so it won't feel any fear, just so he can release it from its suffering. Why does he love children so much? Because of their innocence. They remind him of Gopala, Vishnu in the form of a baby. Shiva cannot do without Vishnu, nor Vishnu without Shiva. Preservation and destruction go hand in hand.
So Shivji worships Vishnuji, and Vishnuji worships Shivji. And children are innocent, right? But having said that, it's also a matter of today, in the Gita, it had come that a person who has a long life has a lot of vasanas, and a person who goes quickly has finished their vasanas. Okay, so that's the reason why someone goes away early.
Anjaneya. Once upon a time, Shiv and Parvati were on Mount Kailash in the high Himalayas, enjoying the night air, the stars, and the intense cold. Parvati decided that it was a propitious time to ask a question. Lord, she whispered, on whom do you meditate? Lord Shiva smiled and said, O goddess, my mind is always turned to Vishnu, and even now I am thinking that he is going to be born into the world as Ram. I have decided to be born along with him to help him out. And that is why Anjaneya was born and why he was the servant of Ram. Anjaneya is called Hanuman. Some say this is because Indra, the king of gods, once broke Anjaneya's jaw, Hanu, with a thunderbolt. But there is a hidden meaning there. Hanuman should be read as Anuman because he is the atomic force. Anu means atom, the force which moves all matter in the universe. That is why he is called Pavanputra or Vayusut, son of wind, wind being personified as the motile force. And we all know the power of nuclear energy. That is the power of Anjaneya. You can also read his name as Hanuman, Hanuman. Hana means to kill, and as Maharudra, the manifestation of the god of death. Anjaneya is a killer. He is called Ekadash Rudra, the 11th Rudra, because he has perfect knowledge of both the dual and non dual aspects of reality. 11 is 1 1. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Duality. Once Anjaneya said to Ram, if I look at you from the point of view of Gyan, absolute knowledge, there is absolutely no difference between me and you. But when I see you through the dual viewpoint, from the standpoint of a devotee, then I am your servant.
So again, what is the perspective with which you are looking at that thing? So at the Atma level, there is no distinction between Ram and Hanuman. But at the physical level, there is a distinction.
Anjaneya is extremely clever. On one occasion, he was throwing stones into the water and they would float. But when Ram tried to do it, the stones would sink. When Ram asked why that was, Anjaneya replied, Master, I throw stones in your name and they float. But you are God incarnate, and if you throw something down, how can that thing ever stop until it reaches the bottom? And Ram was amazed at his answer.
So again, it is a perspective, right? What is the consciousness with which you are doing something?
No one can match Anjaneya in Veer Bhav or in Dasya Bhav. He is the perfect hero and the perfect servant. That is why his devotees called him Mahavir, the great hero. He could easily have taken Sita himself and returned her to Ram without any war. After all, he burned down the entire city of Lanka. But no, the play had to go on. It is always better for you to worship Anjaneya in his aspect as the perfect servant because your qualities of service will develop and automatically your ego will be kept under control. If you try to worship him in his heroic aspect, you will have to endure great difficulties. It's worth it though. I can't describe to you the feeling I experienced when I first saw Anjaneya. I was in a smashan late at night, and as my ritual reached its climax, a tremendous electrical storm began. The lightning came closer and closer, striking the ground near me, and it seemed as if the thunderbolts were going to fall right on top of my head. The noise of the thunderclaps, Meghnad, was almost unbearable. Even the best of ascetics would run away. Who would not try to avoid being struck by lightning? But no, you have to sit. Thanks to His grace, I was able to endure it and I was able to see Him face to face. In fact, as the thunder worsened, my mood became more exalted. Ah, now He is finally going to come to me. Anjaneya is high, no doubt, but there is no manifestation of Shiva higher than Mahakal. He is the Adi Rudra, the first of all the Rudras, the ultimate.
So, what is the point over here? The aspect or the vibratory frequency of what you're worshipping or what you're connecting with, that is what is going to manifest in your consciousness also. So over here, there are two bhavs, there are two perspective of Hanumanji. One is the Veer bhav or the powerful bhav, and the other is the service bhav. So naturally, it's easier to go into the service bhav than in the Veer bhav, because in the Veer bhav, you are going to have to face a lot of stuff. But in the service bhav, you will be protected by the master. So your ego is not coming into the picture. In the other place, your ego comes tremendously into the picture.
Sagal Shah. When someone in India feels some overpowering emotion or has a fright, he will touch his chest and say, Ram, Ram, Ram. He will never say, Hara, 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 because Ram is part of Vishnu and so preserves life. And Hara, being Shiva, takes it away. Only a very few ever say Hara under such circumstances. Whenever I think of this, I think of my own mother. As she lay dying, she was repeating the name of her Guru, Harnath Thakur. Hara, 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 come to me. How many people have ever died with the names of the god of death on their lips, even inadvertently, as in my mother's case? That is why I always say I am most fortunate to have had her for my mother. The word hara comes from the root r, which means to snatch. Mahakal is he who snatches your life away. He has also been described as Lord of Thieves because he robs you of your most precious possession, your life. What is life anyway? The worlds, the gods, the demons, everything has been created by the rishis. It is all their play. New creation can only appear when the old disappears, which is why the rishis never allow death to cease to exist. Otherwise, their play would suffer. Death is essential for life, The rishis don't like to interfere directly. Even if your child is a criminal, you destroy it? Never. So Mahakal is there to do the dirty work of disposing of all the old forms. The rishis are actually in charge though. They pull the strings and the universe dances. For example, they give Lord Shiva the badge which allows him to kill. Even Mahakal, who comes as close as any being can to existence without manifestation, exists at the whims of the rishis. And the rishis are beyond human comprehension totally.
So again, when we are looking at it from the Monroe perspective, in Focus 27, there is a planning center where everything is planned. If you want to experience something, literally you have to give an arzi for that to be able to experience that. So a soul group is created, and within that group you are born so that you can experience that thing. So over here, when I read this passage, it connects me to the planning center, that the rishis are evolved souls who are actually planning everything for us. What are we experiencing? What are we playing with? What is happening around us? What is our perception? How are we twisting it? All that is all planned. Okay. Now we have something over here called our what do you call the independent mind? What is it called? Okay. So we have a free will. We have a free will, right? Which can divert us from what the plan was. And again, we are talking about the patterns, right? So the universe, you can call them the rishis over here, are constantly reminding us as to what was our life plan. What was our life plan, which we have shifted away from because of the free will factor, and to come back onto the life track.
I have always advocated worship of God with form. But you should realize that when I say this, I mean that you should worship the one who manifests through the deity. All deities, all forms of God are mere aspects of the one. So instead of saying, for example, Wah, Lord Shiv, how compassionate you are, wouldn't it be subtler to say, Wah, Lord, your creation, Lord Shiva, is the epitome of compassion? All deities are merely playing their assigned roles in the great cosmic drama. You should respect them for how well they play their roles and love the one who manifests through them. It is so much easier to get to one by worshipping God with form.
So ultimately, all the Devi Devtas also are coming under the hierarchy of the Brahman, right? So everything is a form of that. Everything is a download. It's a downgrade from that. So even Lord Shiva has been created by that higher aspect. So instead of worshipping the Devi or Devta in that aspect, if you worship the divinity within that aspect, that will connect you to the higher aspect. Should we stop here now? I think we can stop here. There are two more pages, so we won't finish.